This video is brought to you by Brilliant. On Thursday night, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump engaged in the first of two scheduled debates. Whilst there was some noteworthy discussion of policy, as anyone who's glanced at the headlines in the past 48 hours will know, the big story from the debate was Biden's apparent senility. The incumbent president had a number of so-called senior moments. When attacking Trump on his tax cuts and the national debt, he stumbled and stated that he finally beat Medicare, prompting Trump to respond that Biden had indeed beat Medicare and beat it to death.
Child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Then, when Biden was discussing immigration and the border, he ended his answer in such a disjointed manner that Trump just said he had no idea what Biden had said and that he didn't think Biden did either.
Move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Other mistakes included incorrectly stating how much his administration lowered the price of insulin, mixing up terms like billions and millions many times, and generally just looking a bit lost on the debate stage. This might sound like a partisan or anti-Biden comment, but it's really not. Even Democrats were worried by the president's shaky performance, and there are now growing calls for him to step down and hand the reins over to a younger, more competent candidate. So in this video, we're going to look at what was said during the debate, Biden's disastrous performance, and whether he could actually step down before the election.
Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos.
Now, before we get on to whether Biden could be replaced, a bit about the debate itself. Broadly speaking, neither candidate came out of it particularly well. As we've just mentioned, Biden, who was apparently suffering from a cold, according to his office, appeared frail and muddled, but while Trump was markedly more assured, he stuck relatively rigidly to his talking points and lied constantly. For context, his talking points mostly included arguing that abortion should be left up to individual states, that NATO members were not paying their fair share, and that Biden was to blame for inflation. Trump also continued to assert that the 2020 election was rigged, didn't dispute President Biden's claim that he wanted to pardon January the 6th rioters, and refused to state that he would accept the results of the election, saying he would only do so if it was free and fair. When it comes to the lies, to give just a handful of examples, Trump falsely claimed that Democrats want abortions up until and after birth, and that Biden wants to, quote, raise your taxes by 4 times. These came on top of a whole load of vague brags that are almost definitely false under most interpretations, including that Trump's administration had the best environmental numbers, the lowest taxes ever, and the lowest regulations ever. Nonetheless, even if Trump's performance wasn't great, most of the media seems to think that Biden's was worse, or at least deserving of more media attention. Biden's performance was apparently so bad that it sparked panic among Democrats, with Politico reporting that many Democratic operatives viewed Biden's performance as, quote, terrible, and some even stated he should be replaced at the Democratic convention in August. David Plouffe, a Democratic strategist and former Obama campaign official, called the debate kind of a DEFCON 1 moment, saying the biggest thing in this election is voters' concerns, and it's both swing voters and base voters with his age, and those were compounded tonight. Viewers seem to back up this sentiment, as 67% of debate viewers said that Trump won the debate, compared to 33% who said Biden won. Even the left-leaning media was openly critical. CNN started talking about how Biden might be replaced before the election in November, and The Economist, which isn't necessarily left-leaning but is no big fan of Trump, described the performance as horrific, with a byline that reads, "The president had one job and he utterly failed at it." So could the Democrats actually replace Biden before November? Well, the short answer is that there's basically no formal mechanism for the Dems to get rid of Biden, and the only feasible way this might happen is if he steps down himself, which is something he's previously ruled out many times. Biden won the primaries almost uncontested, and so has about 95% of the delegates. These delegates aren't legally required to vote for who won in the primaries, but they are asked to vote in a way that, quote, in all good conscience reflects the sentiments of those who elected them, and voting for someone else would be unprecedented. Even if Biden were to step aside, it would leave these delegates in a bit of limbo, unless one candidate became the clear favourite before the Democratic Convention, which is due to take place between the 19th and the 22nd of August. Even if Biden were to nominate someone, probably Kamala Harris, this wouldn't be binding for the delegates. All in all, Biden will still probably be the Democratic nominee, given he's shown no willingness to step down.
And I know how to do this job. I know how to get things done. And I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
Internally, Biden and his allies will probably argue that voters already knew about his age, so it was in a sense baked in, and point to the fact that debates don't matter anywhere near as much as the media seems to think they do in elections. Kerry won all his debates against Bush in 2004 and still lost. Trump lost all of his debates in 2016 and still won. And more recently, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman had a horrible debate after suffering a stroke and still won by 5 points in a red year. Biden's allies will point to the fact that not only did he beat Trump in 2020, but Democrats have outperformed the polls in basically every special election since. And replacing Biden now would be chaotic and divisive, not least because there's no obvious replacement. Kamala Harris is sort of the next in line, but she's at least as unpopular as Biden, and nominating potentially more popular candidates like California Governor Gavin Newsom would be complicated and invite infighting. It's also worth saying that, for all the talk about Newsom saving the day, a California governor who spent most of his political life to the left of Biden wouldn't necessarily do that well in the swing states that are required for the presidency. Nonetheless, even if debates don't usually matter, voters' main concern about Biden is his age, and the viral clips of him stumbling over his words will definitely have cut through with the electorate. And even if Biden himself doesn't want to step aside, if a critical mass of the Democratic Party decides that his candidacy is just too reckless given the apparent risks involved in a second Trump presidency, it'll become politically impossible for Biden to stay on. Looking around the political stage, there's a good number of people who are probably eyeing up new jobs at the moment, so it might be a good time for Rishi & Co to grab a subscription to Brilliant. That's because Brilliant is the platform where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI, all of which are important skills whether you're currently in the jobs market or just looking to learn new things. As existing users will already know, Brilliant is a uniquely effective learning platform. Their first principles approach helps you build understanding from the ground up. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, a method proven to be 6 times more effective than watching lecture videos. Plus, if you are looking for a new job, say you're eyeing up a move to California to get into tech, Brilliant's growing number of programming courses are a great way to build foundations and learn real-world applications. Their courses help you learn essential coding elements, from loops and variables to nesting and conditionals, as well as developing your mind to think like a programmer, building a strong foundation in writing robust programs. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, click on the link in the description. Plus, when you do subscribe, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription.